Hey YouTube! So I'm currently out of town, and while I am hanging around the hotel and it is nap time, I thought I could find the time to finally share the story of my second birth with you guys. Now that it's been about 6 months since my birth, I want to get it out there before it's not fresh in my memory anymore. And I do believe I shared the birth of my daughter, my first birth, with you guys around the same time. So at the end of it, I will show my second child after nap time. And so I just wanted to start with, we did plan the second one, and I'm going to start from the beginning to end and maybe add a little bit of postpartum in there. I knew I needed to wait and give my body and my mental some time to heal from everything and prepare to have a second child, and this would be like the final, the last, so we were definitely planning and taking our time with this one. And I wanted a 2020 baby, and I knew I wanted a 2020 baby before 2020 ever hit. So in 2019 we started trying to conceive, and we ended up conceiving in October, and we didn't announce until November. And then in December, with the holidays at the end of the month with November and at the end of the month with December, that whole month we were traveling out of town with jobs, with family, all of that. And then New Year's rolls around, the first week of January. I finally get in with an OB, and I meet my OB for the first time. And I also get to see my baby for the first time because she was nice enough to put us in the room with the ultrasound machine that they had in the office. And after a little sneak peek of getting to see our baby, she actually gave us the appointment for the full ultrasound that would give us our due date and hopefully the gender. So within a couple weeks, and I was in that appointment, I got all those details. I found out that my baby was due in July, had a heart rate around like 140 at that time, and then it turned out we found out we were having a boy, but we didn't announce until the end of February, around the time of my daughter's birthday, because she was born February 2018. So I think everyone knows what happened in March. Everyone found out about all the virus stuff and everything closed, and for the month, I'm telling you, I did not have any appointments, we did not go out, everything was shut down. In April, I finally got back in with my OB, and this was my second time seeing her, and it was like the first heartbeat check and measurement of my belly, and at this point I was already 26 weeks. I mean, the panic didn't really start to set in. Like, I think everyone still thought like maybe this will just go away. But once May hit, I knew that I'd be delivering in a pandemic. As much as people kept saying it was still going away. And I went in for my OB appointments more regularly. I think it was every 2 weeks still at this point. And I started to talk about my birth plan with her. People were already talking about canceling C-sections that were deemed elective, so my greatest question was what my birth plan would look like and whether or not I would be deemed an essential C-section. So in the end, she asked me how I felt comfortable delivering, and I told her I wanted a second C-section, and she told me it would not be deemed an elective C-section this time because I had had a previous C-section. She deemed it essential for me. And over the next couple appointments, we started talking about more of my birth plan, since I knew I was going to be having a second C-section. And that way we got to know the date and time we'd be going in and having a baby. Basically, it would be around my 39-week mark, so I was going to get to pick. I also told her if there was one thing I wanted to change about the first birth, it was that I got to see my daughter and hold her after she was born, because with C-sections they don't immediately give you the baby, they gotta check on the baby. But thankfully my OB suggested that we could do a curtain that had a window where at the end, once the baby was delivered, they would open up the window from the curtain and send the baby through and put him on my chest. So I could hold him for his first moments of life and hear him and feel him, instead of just having to hear them and have my husband handed the baby straight off, which is what happened in the first birth. So after we had decided that was when I finally was able to get a little closer to my 39-week mark and pick out a date and time. So I originally really was hoping for my baby to have the same birthday as my grandmother. That was what she was rooting for, but her birthday fell on a weekend and my OB did not come in and do C-sections on a weekend. So I picked the closest date, which would be the Monday following that weekend, and that ended up being my grandfather's birthday. So we picked July 13th, and I wasn't trying to wait all day, and I was lucky enough to have a bunch of like morning times that I was able to pick from. And I mean, as early as 5 in the morning, my OB was ready to prep me for surgery. So I picked 7. I didn't think I was going to be getting any sleep that night, but I definitely didn't want to be awake at 5 in the morning in the hospital like that. So I feel like every time I went into my OB, I had like a million questions that I wasn't expecting to have, because like I said, I planned so much of this. I didn't think so much of it would go unplanned, as much as, you know, birth doesn't, you know, always go on a schedule and go to a plan, you know, you go with the flow. But with the year of 2020 being so different than we expected, I'm telling you, I did not plan for that. I did not plan for my husband not being allowed in the appointments. I did not plan for all the rules that were constantly changing. So by July, the rules that my hospital had in place for us were, honestly, I was surprised that we didn't need to get COVID tested before surgery or after surgery. That quickly changed after I gave birth, but my husband was still allowed to leave the premises and leave the room to go get food and then come back. I know, again, that changed very quickly after I gave birth, and like I said, everything was changing, like constantly changing, because some appointments people were bringing in their spouses and their partners, and other times people were coming in solo, and like I said, the rules were constantly changing. Look who woke up! Oh my goodness, that bedhead. So, with him in my belly, we headed to the hospital Monday morning and were greeted by the OB and all of her staff as we checked in. I got undressed and gowned up and gave all the blood work and urine samples and all that fun stuff. They asked me a million questions. Some of them were, you know, standard, and other ones, you know, they gave us a list of medications, and it was pretty funny to see all the things they could end up potentially giving me. And this morning I had raging heartburn, and I was so ready to get him out. So we went back to surgery, and my husband had to wait outside while I got my spinal. I knew the procedure. I had to bend over a pillow, and I would feel like a bee sting, which honestly I think bee stings are worse. But by the time I was laying down on the table and everything started happening, I felt like the epidural hadn't kicked in. I wasn't ready. They were inserting a catheter, and I could feel everything and every little touch, and I was concerned that I was going to feel more than I did last time. Right off the bat, I felt this way. So I was waiting on my husband still while they began everything, and I could feel them trying to start and telling me they were starting, and I was already complaining about what I could feel. So while I was complaining and moaning and groaning, my husband finally comes in, and I feel bad for him because he literally comes in and I'm crying on the operating table. So when I saw him, I was relieved, but I couldn't focus on that. It was getting more intense every minute as they went on and the surgery progressed. So with that being said, I felt bad for the whole staff that had to hear me complain the whole time. And at a certain point, when they were pulling at him to try to get him to come out, it was taking a little longer than usual. And I'm really happy that everything played out the way it did. I'm really grateful for my doctors and the decisions we made, because he ended up being what they call transverse, which means instead of him being head down, his head was sideways. So the baby was like this, laying sideways in my belly instead of like, up and down. So she had to twist him quite a lot to get him out during a surgery, and she told me that with a natural birth, I don't believe he ever would have came down. So I was glad that I picked the decision that I did, and I didn't try and go with a trial labor, but it was a very different C-section experience than my first. It was more painful. They said when they took my uterus out of my body to tie the tubes, that's when I was experiencing all this pain. But like I said, from jump, I was feeling all this pain, and by the time they took my uterus out of my body, I was screaming bloody murder. I was begging them to stop. I was hoping it would be over soon. They kept assuring me that it would be, and the doctor and my anesthesiologist told me that as soon as the baby was out, he would help me get rid of all this pain. He would give me all the painkillers he could, because you can't do that when the baby's still inside of you. So as soon as my uterus was out of my body and he was out of my body, they put him on my chest, and I held him for as long as I could, and I had to ask them to remove the baby from my chest because I was in so much pain. And when they finally put him on my chest, I actually had to ask for him to be taken off my chest sooner than I expected because I was in so much pain. Well, when they started cleaning him up and, ending the procedure, that was when they started administering all the pain medicine. He told me after the surgery that he had administered 2 doses of morphine, and by the end of it, I was still complaining, so he knocked me out with a shot of ketamine. And I, at the time, did not have any idea. Eyes rolled back in the back of my head, and I thought I was literally dying. I shut up. I wasn't making any sound. I was incoherent. And then he whispers to my husband saying, I just knocked her out with some ketamine. And my husband at least knew what was going on in that moment, but I'm telling you, I had no idea. I had no idea. It was very scary in the moment. And at the end of the surgery, which again probably was at least another 30 minutes, they put me back onto the table to roll me out. And by the end of the surgery, they are transferring me onto another table, and to roll me out, they asked me if I wanted to hold him again. And at this point, it wasn't the pain that was keeping me from holding him, it was the fact that I couldn't open my eyes. I had no idea really what was going on, other than the fact that the surgery was over. I wasn't thinking like I just got drugged with ketamine because I'm on drugs. My mind wasn't thinking clearly. So for the next 24 hours, I was getting rid of that brain fog that all those painkillers had put me in. It was quite a process, and it was a little different than all the medicine that I had received last. And it was different from all the medicine. All the medicines this time was different, recovery-wise. And the recovery from all the medicines was different this time than last time because I didn't receive nearly as many painkillers. So when painkillers are leaving your body, it's almost like an itchy feeling, and you feel like sometimes your skin is crawling. It's crazy. So I was basically going through withdrawals the first day, and then all the air pockets from surgery are leaving your body. Your body's just sore from a C-section, but I'm lucky that I had all the help that I could need. I didn't have to give birth alone because I was giving birth in a pandemic. That was actually a fear of mine and is a reality for many moms, that they don't get their partner, and they don't even get to see the baby if you test positive. So I'm very blessed for everything, and the way it worked out, really, I cannot be ungrateful about it. Because at the end of it, we got a healthy boy weighing 7 pounds, 1 ounce. He was born at 10/17, July 13th. He held out till his birthday. We named him Cyrus for meaning sun. He's my sunshine. And Owen is his middle name after his father. And Nowlin. He's Cyrus Owen Nowlin. And he's the last. Like I said, I got a tubal ligation. So this will be the last birth story I share with you guys. You want to say bye to YouTube? Ready? Bye for now, YouTube.